All right, guys, we're back on the OBS build today. We got a ton of parts in that we need to get this frame dialed in. I've actually already started working on the frame. I'm going to show you guys what I have together so far and what the plan is for this video. All right, so in the last video, I talked about how we were going to have to replace the other side and possibly this side from about here back. And that was my plan. You can see here I had these plates made. I was going to just replace it like that, drill new holes for our hanger that you see there, because these pieces were very rough. You can see how rough that thing is. It's gotten extremely thin, looks like Swiss cheese, just horrible. And I started thinking I had to put some C-notches in anyways, way up here. And I thought, why not just replace from here all the way back? Obviously, we got to make sure when we do this, we get all of our angles all correct and everything like that. So what I did was went ahead and took as many measurements as I could, and I'll show you guys those here. So I took as many measurements as I could, just so I looked really smart and looked like I knew what I was doing. Although I really don't, just like everyone else trying to figure this stuff out as I go. But we have all of our measurements on each side, just a ton of stuff. And so what I did was I took those measurements and then I started fitting up the C-notch and our new rear frame section. I went ahead and had two rear frame sections custom made down at a little machine shop down the road. You can see right here is one, that's for that side. And I already went ahead and did this side. So as you can see, we have our C-notch in here. Went ahead, got that guy kind of put on first. Then I stuck our frame rail section in there. Had a jack underneath of it to hold it right where I needed it. And then I went ahead and threw some tacks on, and it turned out really, really nice. I wanted to go ahead and take care of that off camera, just so my mind was in the right space. I wasn't trying to do 100 things at once, because you really have to make sure that you get these pretty much dead on. If you don't, your leaf spring isn't going to hang right. You know, this section of the frame rail has bed bolts in it, as you can see here, right there, right there. So we got to make sure that it's right. It's not rocket science, so it doesn't have to be to the millimeter, but it's got to be pretty dang close. So, but anyways, I've got that frame rail done. We're going to go ahead and start working on the other one, getting this other frame section tore out. And I'm going to bring you guys along while we do that. So stick around. But real quick, I wanted to talk about this motor sitting over here before we get into cutting our frame up. This is just a little 5.3 that I went ahead and put together for the 67 Camaro that we're going to be LS swapping. It's going to be pretty cool. We're going to videotape it and put it up for you guys. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe so that you can see when that video comes. All right, so real quick, before we get into showing you guys how we're gonna go ahead and tackle this frame rail, I wanted to show you guys one of the reasons why we are doing this. If you look right there, there's a good size crack in the frame. Now, that's not necessarily just from rust. It didn't just rust out there. What the problem was is somebody lowered this truck and they never C-notched the frame. So they left it just like this, when it really needed to be like this. And the reason for that is in this little area, in this little cubby, the rear end will ride up in this little cubby. And what was happening was, instead of it riding up in that cubby on this side, it was just beaten in the bottom of the frame. And before I did anything to this, it was pretty smashed up in there. I got in on this side and tapped it back down just before we did all this. So that's essentially why we have to C-notch the frame. So what I have marked out here is where we need to cut. And the way that I found that was by using this. This is our C-notch. What I did was I found this hole right here is center with where the axle rides. And I marked the center of the top of the C-notch. So what we have to do is line our green line up on top of our C-notch up with that hole, as you can see there. And then I went ahead and marked what we needed to cut out under there. So we're gonna go ahead, get this section of the frame cut out, and then we will start mocking our C-notch up in there, and we'll cut and trim as we need to get this fitted up in there. And in the process of that, we're gonna go ahead and lob this whole section off. I already got all my measurements, so don't need to worry about that, but let's get to cutting. All right, let's go ahead and lob this rear section off, and then we'll work on shaping this section here. All right, there you have it. We got this Swiss cheese taken off of the frame, and now we've got to start shaping this up so that we can get our C-notch set in there. All right, here we have it. We cut our rear section of the frame off. Then we kind of just trimmed up what we needed to trim up. And now we are left with this. This goes on there perfectly, slides right over the frame rail. We line our line up with the hole in the frame that I was talking about. And she's ready to go. So what we'll do is we'll get this relatively straight using a angle finder. We'll tack it here, and then we'll add on our rear section of the frame and do the same with the angle finder and etc. So let's get to it. All right, so I want to show you guys exactly how I'm making sure that this piece is perfectly welded to this piece. What we want to do is keep the angle of these two pieces very, very close to one another. As far as the angle this way, back and forth, we're just going to push the C-channel up against the frame, and it's going to follow the original frame. So that'll work out real perfect and easy. Really, the only thing that we have to worry about is our up and down angle, because as you can see, there's about 3/8 of an inch of movement there that we need to get perfect. So the way that we're doing this is setting our angle finder on the original frame, and we zeroed it out. You can see 0.1, 0.2, it'll vary a little bit. We need to get this degree as close to that one as possible. So we're going to set our angle finder right about there. And as you can see, it's already pretty close at 0.18, 0.17 degrees. We just want to angle the frame rail until we can get it as close to zero as possible. And then what we're gonna do is tack it once we get it close, and then we will start building the rest of the frame rail. But for now, let's get this angle down, and we'll go ahead and buzz this thing in. So sometimes you gotta work with what you got. I stuck a Sawzall blade in there between the original frame and the C-channel. So now if we just press down here, you can look and see it gets down to about 0.1%. So that's extremely close. We're gonna go ahead and tack it just like that. So as you can see, we've got now 2 Sawzall blades tucked in behind there. Our piece is perfectly level with our original frame. And now we're gonna go ahead, get our gloves on and tack it up. You'll notice it'll probably change a little bit, but that's all right, as long as it's close. All right, she's all tacked up, ain't coming off there. Our level is perfect. And we're gonna start building the rear section of the frame. And once that's done, we'll go ahead and tack all this. Well, we'll go ahead and fully weld all this together. All right, so we have our other piece of the frame here that I had made. This is going to snap right into place, right like that. Now what our focus is we are going to get this frame rail to the same degree that this C-notch is at. We're going to make sure that it's level with the other frame rail on the other side. And then we also have a distance from this side to that side that I have measured that we will have to make sure is perfect as well. So we have about 3 or 4 different measurements that we need to do to make sure this is in the exact place that it needs to be before we can tack it onto the C-notch. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing measured out and adjusted to where we need it, because as you can see, a lot of play there. So we're gonna get this all set up, and I'll bring you guys back when it's all set up and we start tacking it onto the C-notch. Also, one last thing before we get too carried away, and I forget to mention it, shout out to Shelby Grinders for making these frame rails for me. I appreciate it. They did a really nice job on it. I'm very impressed. And if you're local to Mansfield, Ohio, or anywhere around there, they do what looks like great work so far. We'll see. I'll have them probably cut me out a few more things, and we'll see. But so far, I'm very impressed with them. As you'll see here, I'm just taking a bunch of measurements, trying to get this thing as straight as possible before we weld it. All right, so funny enough, I had to recut the tacks off of that to get this piece perfect. So we've got it all set up perfectly, and I'm gonna go ahead and tack the rear rail on now. All right, she's all tacked up. Now we're gonna redo our measurements, make sure everything is nice and straight. Once we do that, we'll go ahead and fully weld her up. Well, we measured everything out. It all turned out to be relatively straight. So we're gonna go ahead and buzz this thing in.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words.
All right guys, here we have it. We have both of the frame sections finished up in the rear. The C-notches are in and everything and fully welded, and it turned out really good. All the measurements are coming out to what we need them to be, and they look great. So check it out. You can see our C-notches are in there. These are actually bolt-in C-notch kits. I think they do that just because most people don't have a welder that do this type of stuff. Well, you would think a lot of them would, but I guess not. But we just went ahead and plug welded those. They didn't turn out the best, but they're not too hateful. Then we went ahead, welded it all the way around on the inside back here as well, and it looks great. I mean, that turned out really good. And as you guys saw before, this section of the frame was just horrible. I actually think I have it right over here. I mean, we went from this to that. So that looks great. I mean, this was just rough. You can see a rust hole there. Just really rough. I would have hated to reuse that piece. I want this truck to be a quality piece when it's done. I want it to be a really nice truck. So like I'm talking maybe not SEMA quality, but close, as close as I could possibly make it, you know. So I'm not the best in the world, but I'm doing what I can with what I got. So we're going to figure out what's next. We still have some more frame stuff to tackle. We have these done. I'm gonna have a guy make me plates on the table, on a plasma table, to basically inlay to this, to kind of tie both frame rails better together, better than they already are. So that'll make it real nice. We're also, like I said in an earlier video, gonna box these in and then do some cross bracing in between the two, just to strengthen up the frame rails back here. They are very strong. I mean, I can lift up the whole frame just with this piece here, but let's move on over here. So as you can see, I have all of our leaf spring brackets and our shock brackets laid out. These all need to go on the truck. Obviously these go right back here, just like that. And that's what holds our leaf spring on. So we've got to drill those holes. And we've got quite a bit of work to do, but my goal is, before that 67 Camaro gets here to be LS swapped, my goal is to have this frame rolling. It's a hefty goal. It's a big goal, but I really think we can do it. And by rolling, I mean everything done, the front suspension finished and painted. Because obviously, like you guys know, I said it in the last video, we're going to paint this frame black and then clear it. We do have a few other spots to fix on the frame before we can start assembling, but we're getting there, guys. So hang in there, and it's going to be pretty cool to see this frame transform from what it was to scraping pounds of rust out to what it's going to be, which is going to be a pretty sick ass truck. So stay tuned if you guys want to see more progress on the truck. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like this video if you liked it, or dislike it if you disliked it. Leave me some comments on how you guys think the C-notch kit turned out. I'm super happy with it for a guy working out of a 1.5, 2-car garage. I think it turned out pretty dang good. But I'll see you guys next time.